Could there be anything more uncomfortable than this? Sean, my boyfriend, proposed to me, and I came to his family's house with my dad to introduce ourselves. But as soon as we arrived, it was clear that we weren't exactly welcome.
Figures, some single-parent girl like you is probably just out to trap a guy.
Oh, right. It's so obvious you're looking to marry into money. Maybe your deadbeat parent has a low-wage job? I'd actually prefer the mistress here. Oh, wait. Are you the mistress?
My gut feeling was right. There was Sean's dad, Sam, and his mom, Yvonne. Never did I imagine that people I just met would say things like this.
No, that's not true.
Sean hurriedly interrupted, his voice rising as he denied his parents' words, looking distressed by my piercing gaze. Fine. It's time to tell them. Sorry for the late introduction. Let me introduce my dad, the commissioner of the U.S. Police Department.
What?
I'm Amy's father, Isaac King.
Oh,
Well, thanks for the welcome. Do you get what I mean?
My dad, who had been sitting next to me, watching the conversation unfold, now looked directly at Sean's parents with a cold fury. The air instantly tightened, and the temperature dropped as if the room had turned to ice. Sean and I had met, as they say, at a casual dinner with friends.
My dad's actually a police officer.
Something about those words made me feel close to him, and soon we started dating. Since then, I'd often hear Sean bragging about his dad in law enforcement.
My family's been elite police officers for generations, and right now my dad's assigned to protect that senator.
Saying that, he pointed to a senator on the TV screen right in front of us.
Oh yeah, that's my dad.
Hey, aren't security detail officers supposed to keep that kind of inside information private, even from family?
What? Not at all. I've even met the senator's daughter.
What? Apparently, he'd been invited to one of the senator's parties, enjoyed dinner with her, and has even gone out with her several times since. And casually, Sean mentioned they're still seeing each other now. Why are you dating me if you're also meeting her one-on-one?
What? Why wouldn't I? I'm planning to marry her.
What? The moment I heard those words, my vision went black. When Sean's parents heard my dad introduce himself as the U.S. Police Commissioner, they froze for a moment. Then they burst into laughter.
huh? Is this single dad losing it just because his daughter got played?
When someone like you realizes they're losing their chance at a high-status marriage, they'll start spouting ridiculous lies like the U.S. Police Commissioner, huh? I wouldn't know what people at the bottom think, though.
They seemed certain my dad was bluffing and didn't believe him at all. Then my dad reached into his chest pocket and pulled something out. He held up his police badge, which clearly read, the U.S. Police Commissioner.
I assume even you idiots can recognize a real commissioner's badge when you see one?
My dad's laugh, with that cold, unfeeling look, was chilling enough to make even me, his daughter, shiver. The three of them, caught in his direct gaze, turned pale and broke out in a cold sweat.
No way. You're really.
Be quiet. Wait a second. Are you really the commissioner? There must be some mistake.
Well then, why don't you take your phone there and search the U.S. Police Commissioner? You should see my face plastered all over as the current commissioner.
Honey,
Oh no.
At Yvonne's urging, Sam hurriedly grabbed his phone and began searching. Seconds later, the three of them stared at the screen, frozen.
By the way,
At my dad's sudden voice, all three of them flinched. Turning toward my dad with a look of trepidation, they listened as he spoke firmly.
yes, My daughter is from a single-parent family, but she's neither a gold digger nor looking for a quick marriage. You understand that much, right?
We're terribly sorry.
With Sam's overly loud apology, Sam and Yvonne also apologized.
My wife passed away a few years ago from illness. And though my family went through that hardship, in today's world, many single-parent families work hard despite all kinds of circumstances. Do you really think all these hardworking families are poor, that their kids only want to marry into money? Do you see them as people completely different from yourselves?
Well, that was just a figure of speech.
Oh, so you and your wife think it's acceptable to use figures of speech to say such vulgar things to someone you hardly know?
Well,
To you, I suppose, single-parent families are just beneath you and don't measure up to your so-called elite status, right? That's why you jump straight to calling her a girl trapping a guy without so much as a simple hello.
The quiet anger in my dad's voice seemed to hit them hard, and all three became speechless. But my dad clearly couldn't forgive people like them so easily. His words continued, sharp as ever.
As a police officer, you're supposed to understand people's words and actions, empathize with others' positions and feelings. Yet here you are, exposing your complete lack of professionalism in front of me. Aren't you embarrassed?
we're very sorry.
To avoid angering my dad any further, Sean's parents, especially Sam, deeply apologized, though I doubted how genuine it was.
And on what basis do you call yourself part of a police elite family anyway?
Excuse me? A police elite family?
Sean bragged about it to me when we first met at that dinner party. He said, "My family has been police elites for generations."
What? Sean actually said that?
Generations? Sam here is the only one in the family who's even been in the police force.
At his parents' words, Sean looked away, clearly embarrassed. "So, I take it you say things like this to impress women, don't you?"
What?
Pretending to be from an elite police family to make yourself look good, huh? At least that's what my daughter heard.
Well, I mean,
The fact that you can't even deny it outright kind of says it all.
well, it's not really a lie, is it? My dad is part of the security detail for the senator. He's elite, so adding a little something about generations isn't that bad.
Sean said this nonchalantly, and we all let out a small sigh.
The concept of elite does not exist just because someone is a security detail officer. And beyond that, aren't you just a local public servant? Within the non-career track, a security detail chief may seem like the top, but around career officers in federal law enforcement, anyone claiming to be elite would just be laughed at.
At my dad's words, Sam's face turned beet red.
Above all, security officers aren't supposed to blab about their job to others. Most keep details of where they're going or who they're protecting confidential, even from their own families. Yet here your son is carelessly sharing it all with outsiders. Quite frankly, it's disgraceful.
We're very sorry.
Do you understand why your son ended up this way?
No, I don't.
It's about how you act at home.
What?
I'm sure you've been going on and on about your job at home, bragging that you're somehow special or elite among police officers, and putting down anyone who doesn't measure up, belittling them. That comment about a girl trapping a guy, it's clear that came from you. So, of course, your son grew up hearing that and thought it was fine to go boasting to others.
Yes.
True elites don't feel the need to brag, no matter the field. Isn't my daughter a good example of that?
The three of them turned bright red and lowered their heads in embarrassment. In my family, not only is my dad the U.S. Police Commissioner, but both of my grandfathers also held high-ranking positions in law enforcement. My parents met thanks to their fathers, who were colleagues and friends in their careers. If we trace back, several of my relatives held or currently hold respectable positions in law enforcement. If anything, we're truly what you call a police elite family. Growing up seeing my father and those around me, I probably developed a natural inclination to admire men in law enforcement. In fact, part of what drew me to Sean was the sense of connection I felt because his dad was also a police officer. It's incredible how deeply ingrained things can be. Had Sean not boasted about that, I might not have felt attracted to him in the first place. Reflecting on this, I felt a bit cheapened, as if my feelings were somehow superficial, and that led me to feel a bit down on myself. My dad must have noticed the slight change in my expression. After clearing his throat, he turned back to the three of them.
Well, now that we all understand each other's positions, I'd like to continue our conversation. What was all that talk earlier about a mistresses?
What?
You mentioned something about prefer a mistress or something, and then you even said my daughter was a mistress, didn't you? What was that all about?
Well,
Before Yvonne could answer, Sam jumped in quickly.
No, the mistress thing was just a figure of speech. You know, Amy already knows this, right? The senator I protect has taken a liking to my son, so he keeps insisting he attend parties. And he keeps getting invited. Honestly, it's a little overwhelming.
But when I asked him why he was meeting her one-on-one, he flat out told me, "Why shouldn't I? I plan to marry her." At those words, all three of them went pale.
No, you're mistaken. That was just a joke. A joke, really. I was just trying to see how you felt. You know, get you a little jealous to see if you really cared about me.
You try to confirm someone's feelings with a line like that. Unlike you, I don't even meet up with male friends alone, and I hardly ever go out with the girls. What exactly were you trying to confirm?
Well, I guess that's true.
Mumbling and failing to make himself clear, Sean was cut off by my dad, who asked directly,
Are you the type of person who jokes about making personal visits to the senator's residence?
What?
It's not just you. All three of you have been making personal visits to the senator's home. Care to explain the nature of your relationship?
No, that's a misunderstanding. I only go to the senator's house for work.
Oh, so you do this work in plain clothes?
What?
You show up in plain clothes with your family in tow while supposedly acting as security detail.
Well, that is.
Enough with the poor excuses. You clearly have a private relationship with the senator. And as for your son, that comment about marrying the senator's daughter wasn't a joke. We're also aware Sean has stayed at the senator's residence multiple times.
What? How did you?
As the three of them looked shocked, my dad spread a few photographs across the table. In the photos, all three of them were captured entering and leaving the senator's residence in plain clothes, with one photo showing Sean walking out of the house alongside the senator's daughter.
What is this?
wait, is this surveillance?
It's a clear picture, isn't it? Here, you can even see Sean and the senator's daughter in detail.
How did this happen?
I had no idea.
The two men stared at the photos in disbelief. However, Yvonne had a different reaction.
Just because you're the police commissioner, you think it's fine to take hidden photos? There are things you can and can't do. Depending on the situation, this could be considered misconduct.
Hey, Ivan,
But it's true. So what if he's the police commissioner? This is an invasion of privacy.
Yvonne, clearly angered by the photos, lashed out at my dad without restraint. Sam, flustered, tried to calm her down, but Yvonne's outrage only grew. And she even threatened to take legal action. My dad remained calm as he watched her.
Then, would you like to file a lawsuit?
What?
If you want to sue, go right ahead. But if that's an invasion of privacy, then what Amy and I experienced from your insults was a complete character assassination, wasn't it?
We didn't expect to be spoken to so cruelly by people we just met. It was deeply hurtful and utterly false. Would it be acceptable if we filed a suit for defamation on those grounds? Yvonne, feeling cornered, bit her lip and took a sharp breath.
Furthermore, we have a legitimate reason for these actions, and it's not about trivial matters.
What? A legitimate reason? There's no such thing when it comes to secret surveillance.
So, you're saying that if you were investigated, nothing shady would come up? You're absolutely clean then?
My dad's tone was deliberate and strong. The two men, and even Yvonne, hesitated to respond. Noticing their reaction, my dad gave a slight smile and continued.
You see, the senator you're protecting, Mr. Johnson, was once a junior colleague of my brother. They still keep in touch.
your brother.
Yes, although he isn't a police officer himself. My brother works in the judicial field, and he mentioned hearing a rumor about Mr. Johnson's daughter. He asked me, "Did you know the senator's daughter is supposedly engaged to the son of a security detail officer?"
What?
Well, being in the police department, I naturally don't know the personal lives of every officer in other branches, but I do know which security officers are assigned to certain senators.
Wait, is that true?
Let's just say there are certain behind-the-scenes matters that we're aware of.
I see.
It seemed quite surprising that the daughter of a senator would be engaged to the son of a non-career track security officer. It left a strong impression.
Excuse me, isn't that rather rude?
Yvonne snapped back, offended by my dad's choice of words. But he gently waved her off with a slight laugh.
Oh, my apologies. Yes, it might be rude. But you understand, don't you? A local officer who's far from being an elite, paired with the senator's daughter?
You don't have to say so clearly.
So I began to suspect there was something behind this, which is why I started investigating the connection between you and the senator.
Hearing this, Sam suddenly looked at my dad with a hint of realization. Noticing Sam's gaze, my dad's mouth curled into a slight smile.
Are you suggesting these photos are?
Yes, I wasn't investigating Sean's affairs. My focus was the connection between you and the senator. These photos were gathered as part of that investigation.
His relaxed tone seemed to carry a subtle, unsettling power. Sam looked down, his fingers trembling slightly as he processed the situation. Watching him, my dad shifted the topic with a casual question.
By the way, you drive a nice car, don't you?
Sam, looking up in surprise, showed a slight look of relief.
Oh, yes, thank you. I recently bought a new one.
It must have been pricey, right?
Well, yes, it wasn't cheap.
Did you reserve it in advance?
No, I just happened to like it and bought it on the spot.
Hearing this, my dad raised an eyebrow ever so slightly.
Interesting. It's a high-end model from a luxury brand that just launched last month. Limited production, and there's currently about a 6-month waiting list. Even as a preferred customer, I couldn't have gotten one without reserving it well before the release. And yet, you just happened to like it and bought it right away. Care to explain that?
What?
Actually, I visited Mr. Johnson's home recently, and the exact same car was parked in his garage.
And what about it?
He's been the Secretary of Transportation for years, and before that, he was in the Department of Transportation. Not to imply anything, but he surely has deep connections with manufacturers. Can you explain what this suggests?
With that, my dad placed another set of photos on the table. In these photos, Sam and Mr. Johnson were standing in the senator's large open garage, talking with two other men in front of two luxury cars. Sam's face tightened as he broke into a sweat, his fingers trembling once more.
Explain yourself.
My dad's voice was low and commanding. Sam opened his mouth, attempting to speak, but his voice caught in his throat, producing nothing but a faint, strained sound out of sheer fear.
Are you really a security officer with the U.S. Police Department? Have you no pride as a police officer?
Startled by my dad's outburst, everyone in the room flinched. At the same moment, Sam shouted, "I'm sorry," as he apologized deeply.
What exactly are you apologizing for?
For everything.
Everything? Be specific.
For all of my actions.
That's what I'm asking you to explain.
I'm sorry.
Pulled in by my dad's strong tone, Sam responded loudly. He was completely at my dad's mercy.
Explain these photos in your own words.
Yes.
After taking a breath as if steeling himself, Sam began to speak.
I've been assigned to Mr. Johnson for about 3 years now. Of course, my work is entirely focused on protecting him, but during breaks, we began to chat casually. Given our similar age, we grew closer. In fact, we're on friendly terms outside of work, and it's true that our children's engagement has been discussed.
I see. Go on.
As for the car, we were both considering buying one, so we looked at catalogs together, and sometimes I'd accompany him to the dealership as part of my security duties. I found a car I liked, but was told there'd be a 6-month wait from the manufacturer. I was fine with waiting, or even considering a different model, but then Mr. Johnson said, "Leave it to me."
So you left it to him?
Yes, as a mere officer, there was nothing I could do anyway. Following his guidance, everything was arranged, and I got the car. When Mr. Johnson called me over to his house, I arrived to find the 2 cars in the garage, just as shown in the photos, delivered by dealership staff.
Sam let out a long breath. After pausing thoughtfully, my dad asked Sam another question.
Do you know the price of that car?
I believe it was close to $400,000.
Right? You can't afford that amount, can you?
Well, actually, the payment.
You didn't make it. Or rather, you couldn't, right?
What?
A person who has declared bankruptcy can't take out loans, can they? Furthermore, a police officer who declared bankruptcy a few years ago wouldn't be able to pay $400,000 in cash either.
How do you know that?
Sam cried out in surprise. Beside him, Yvonne and Sean were frozen in shock, likely unaware of his bankruptcy. They seemed at a loss for words.
Why are you so surprised now? I did tell you I was looking into your connection with the senator, didn't I?
Yes, you did mention that, but
Your home has always been a rental. Your cars were modest. And once Sean got his job, you bought the car under his own name. Your credit history was in ruins long before the bankruptcy. You couldn't get a loan, nor hold a credit card. You were buried under debt and eventually declared bankruptcy. So now you can't get a loan. And since you couldn't pay $400,000 in cash either, how exactly did you afford that car?
Cornered by my dad's line of questioning, Sam fell silent, his face twisted in discomfort. According to my dad, Sam's debt had been caused by gambling. Due to the nature of police work, stress is not uncommon. Especially for security detail officers, the job is a constant stream of tension. As a result, they need an outlet in their personal lives to relieve that stress. Sam's way of relieving stress turned out to be gambling. A former colleague of Sam's explained that at first, it was just a small indulgence. However, as Sam's assignments began to involve high-profile figures, along with his responsibilities to train juniors, his stress grew, and so did his dependence on gambling. Starting with horse racing, he moved on to boat racing, cycling bets, and even slot machines. Eventually, he was gambling on nearly anything.
So when you asked me to handle the family car, it was because
Since he couldn't take out a loan or make the payments himself, he turned to you for help.
Sean seemed to accept this in shocked understanding. But Yvonne was far from composed.
I had no idea, not a single clue. Are you saying we have no money? Why didn't you talk to me about this?
I'm sorry. I was too ashamed to bring it up.
Ashamed. We could have ended up homeless. We're the ones who look like thieves.
Yvonne turned on Sam, her voice filled with resentment. Then my dad spoke up.
You're not entirely off the mark there.
The three of them looked at him in confusion. In response, my dad met their gazes with a serious look and continued plainly.
You haven't just received a car from Mr. Johnson. You've been taking money and favors from him all along.
Sam closed his eyes, his head falling back, while Yvonne and Sean looked even more stunned. Clearly, they had no idea, just like with the bankruptcy.
what do you mean?
Just as I said, he manipulated favors from Mr. Johnson, gaining cash and gifts, all while pushing for a marriage between Sean and the senator's daughter to secure a family connection the senator couldn't escape.
What?
Manipulating favors, you mean?
He, even a police officer, was aiding Mr. Johnson in his misconduct.
Misconduct?
What does that mean?
The room's atmosphere grew heavy. Mr. Johnson had always been known for his aggressive approach in politics. By leveraging money and power, he pushed through his agenda. When conflicts arose, he wasn't above paying off or crushing his opposition. This strategy, while ethically questionable, had strengthened his party, leading them to turn a blind eye. But as Mr. Johnson's political influence grew, so did his boldness, and recently, members within his own party and opposing parties began openly criticizing his tactics.
So, to cover all of this up, he used you.
What?
Sam might be one of the top officers in the non-career track, which gave him enough authority to coordinate with other departments. Mr. Johnson used that to have Sam bury the issues he created.
It was appalling.
In return for handling those matters, My dad received money and gifts from the senator.
Exactly. Since being assigned to Mr. Johnson, your family's lifestyle has changed, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
That's because he's been receiving regular gifts from the senator. The watch on his wrist, the luxury car, the high-end furniture, the golf set. None of it fits the profile of a bankrupt renter.
Indeed, the house had an odd array of mismatched luxury items, creating a sense of unease that was now explained by my dad's words.
And as I mentioned, even the engagement between you and the senator's daughter was part of it. Sam earned favors by covering up her scandals too.
What?
It seems the daughter has a rather wild side, often engaging in behavior that, if exposed, would jeopardize Mr. Johnson's career.
No way. I never saw her that way.
These cover-upas were more than a one-time occurrence. Each time her actions threatened Mr. Johnson's political career, and each time he called on Sam to make it disappear. To both Mr. Johnson and his daughter, Sam is practically a lifesaver. She had no choice but to comply with his wishes, which led to the engagement.
But why marriage?
Was Sean serious? Sam looked at him with mild disappointment.
If the children married, Mr. Johnson would be bound to Sam as family. Sam likely thought it would secure him in a way Mr. Johnson couldn't easily escape from. Mr. Johnson may have realized his Achilles' heel lay with Sam, but he kept granting him favors to keep him quiet.
Hearing this, Sean looked at me apologetically and said, "Amy, I'm so sorry. I was so happy, then out of nowhere, you calmly mentioned marrying someone else. I honestly felt like I wanted to disappear."
I'm sorry. I truly am.
Hearing Sean apologize like this for the first time, tears began to fall. Accepting the truth, Sean turned back to my dad with one more question.
So, the car was really something my dad requested?
Exactly. That car was his dream vehicle. He didn't decide on it with the senator. He pressured him to get it. Using his position as Secretary of Transportation, the senator pushed the manufacturer to provide two ultra-luxury cars at no cost.
What? Free of charge?
That's impossible.
Sean's shock was understandable. No one would ever get two cars worth close to $400,000 each, free of charge, without some serious strings attached.
Could it be there's also something going on between that manufacturer and Mr. Johnson?
Oh, now you're finally getting it?
What?
Well, no matter. That's between the senator and the manufacturer. It's best not to discuss that here. Regardless, Sam and Mr. Johnson share a shady connection, and your lifestyle has benefited from it. There was never an elite police family, just a hollow facade built on his dirty deeds.
As my dad spoke, all three of them slumped, with Yvonne crying quietly.
Amy, let's go.
At my dad's prompting, I stood up. Sam watched us with a vacant expression.
Officers from the police department will be here soon.
What?
I know it's hard dealing with family, but as your police commissioner, I strongly advise you to cooperate fully before this becomes a full-blown investigation.
Goodbye, Sean. Leaving those words behind, I walked out of Sean's house. Afterward, the three of them were taken into police custody for investigation. Yvonne and Sean, who were unaware of the details, were eventually allowed to return home, having merely been caught up in Sam's actions. Sam, however, was arrested and detained for questioning. As for Mr. Johnson, he was later brought in by the police and, after questioning, was arrested as well. The investigation uncovered further issues, including backdoor deals between the senator, the manufacturer, and questionable funds. It turned out that Sam couldn't have orchestrated such extensive cover use alone, and more names of internal collaborators were coming to light. Of course, Sam was forced to resign from the police, and the senator stepped down from his position. My dad believes the senator will soon have to resign from Congress as well. I never imagined that Sean's affair would lead to such an implosion of his family. The whole thing ended before I even had a chance to feel hurt. Afterward, Sean occasionally reached out with messages hinting at reconciliation. It's clear he's interested in my family's background.
Seems like he missed his shot at marrying a good-looking guy, but he lost his jobs over that nonsense.
Hey, stop it. I'm already disappointed enough in my judgment. It's true. Sean was definitely at fault. But this experience made me reflect on my own issues. In the end, it was my own judgment.
Amy,
What?
choose a man like me, okay?
What's that supposed to mean?
Just saying. Your mom seemed pretty happy, didn't she?
As he said this, my dad looked fondly at the picture of my mom, smiling in her photo on the table. Yes, he was right about that. Through this whole ordeal, my dad had been a tremendous support. His presence, his unwavering strength, and his dignity were something I couldn't help but admire, not just as his daughter, but as a person. Dad,
What's up?
thank you. I smiled at my mom's picture, just as she smiled back.